Of the various characters that we have seen within One Punch Man, some are definitely cooler than others. And of those cool characters, there is certainly a step above when it comes to S Class heroes. And I think it's needless to say, too, that even within that broad category, there are some characters who just stick out more and look cooler, and we always ask, can we see more of them and how powerful are they? I think one of the ones that we see the most of with this is Atomic Samurai, who is just such a cool character, and honestly, one of the few we've seen keep up with almost every situation that has been thrown around in both the anime and the comic. So, when it comes to the question, how strong is Atomic Samurai, we have a lot to get into.
Of course, I would be remiss if I didn't start out with the fact that addressing Atomic Samurai's strength comes from, in no small part, the fact that he is an S class ranked hero. Now, within the world of One Punch Man, there are various types of hero ranks, and we are always told that S class is by far and away the best one. But the reason for that isn't actually given to us until far, far later into the comic, and that is kind of an important aspect, because while we clearly know that many of the characters with this rank are powerful, we don't really entirely understand why they're so revered. However, the simple answer is that due to the grading system of monsters and supervillains within One Punch Man, that they can be demon, dragon, or god, and yes, I know there's one below that, but when was the last time we actually saw one of those? The characters that needed to team up against these types of threats, especially demon, which was more common way before the main storyline started, were largely A class heroes. Like they could get up to that level of strength and power, but they still felt the need to team up in order to actually take out monsters. When it comes to S rank heroes, they can solo a demon level monster. And as we see in the Monster Association arc, they can actually go ahead and solo dragon level monsters. So while that is definitely an impressive feat, there's far more to it when it comes to Atomic Samurai, as he actually ended up going against enemies that would be technically classified as dragon, but whose power levels far closer approximate high level dragon, possibly getting close to god. So when it comes to that, we can't just look at his rank as a hero to determine his total strength. Now, next to his ranking as a hero, arguably his second biggest title within the series is being on the Council of Swordsmen. Now, these swordsmen are a martial arts organization that essentially is dedicated to continually evolving and harnessing the power of swordcraft. Now, they function in a very similar way to some of the martial arts dojos that we've seen in One Punch Man previously. In particular, Silver Fang and his brother Bomb's twin dojos. And I think that's kind of important to point out because we already know from there that martial arts can be a very powerful power source within the One Punch Man universe. Understanding this, we have to know that if there are considered to be four, originally five, but now four, high level swordsmen, to be classified that in the total of the whole world, or at least in all of Japan, is a big deal. The fact that Atomic Samurai sits on that council is a very big deal. I should also point out that it really appears that most other members of the council are in their 50s or older, suggesting a hard life of continually training and learning how to use their abilities. And considering that in One Punch Man, age doesn't really affect your deadliness, I mean, look at Silverfang, it's important to note that Atomic Samurai was powerful enough and great enough with his sword to be on a council with guys who have been doing it far, far longer than him. So that is definitely a good indication of how strong he is. And there is one last indication of how powerful he can really be, and that is in his role as a master of the Sword Council. He has three different students. Now, each of these students are also sword combat practitioners, and they are all powerful in their own right. As a matter of fact, we know all three of them hold an A class ranking. They're actually the three highest ranking A class heroes after a My Mask. Considering that many people think that a My Mask should be S rank, that is saying a lot. And while they are not as powerful as their master by far, as most of them primarily practice only one form of swordplay, each of them was taught it by Atomic Samurai. Now, technically, his free students are Iain, Okama Itachi, and Bushido. All three of them practice very distinctive and different forms of swordplay, but what's really interesting is that we have actually seen Atomic Samurai use all three and blend them together in his own signature style. It's also worth noting that these three characters are very, very different, showcasing that he sees power and the ability to use swords as a high point, not really taking into account the differences between his students, but instead viewing them all as important and that they can raise to his level. Now we get into the really fun part where we go over Atomic Samurai's combat style. Now, it's kind of interesting because, as I've brought up before, there are several characters who use martial arts and weapons as forms of combat and power in the One Punch Man universe. Considering that there's only one other person who ranks above him as a martial artist, that being Silverfang, it speaks highly to Atomic Samurai's combat effectiveness. Now, this is really showcased in the Monster Association arc more than anywhere else, where we really get to see him go all out with his abilities. We know for a fact that he can actually move his sword so fast that by the mere appearance of drawing it, he can actually dice a monster into multiple tiny fragments. We see him do this with Rhino Wrestler. This in and of itself is a powerful feat because the fastest hero is Flashy Flash. This is a character that can move in tenths of seconds. So it is very important to note that when he says, I didn't see how fast he actually drew his sword when Atomic Samurai cut Rhino Wrestler, that is a big deal. He was moving so fast. Now, he can't actually apply this to his usual form of combat, as it's mostly moving the sword at that speed, not himself. That's why Flashy Flash is ranked highest in speed. But it doesn't stop there, as we have seen him use all of the basic forms that all of his students use, whether that be using their sword to parry, cut through multiple objects. We've actually seen him cut through steel and concrete. We also know for a fact that he can use a Kama Itachi style of long range sword cutting, where they seem to use the wind that is displaced by their sword as a blade itself. He does this in mass, taking out a lot of monsters in the process. So really, he's not quite limited by range unless the range goes maybe 5 meters out. So he's pretty confident and powerful with that, and that's not even his highest form with it. We know this because when he was finally forced to fight Black Sperm, he unleashed a new ability that he had not. Now, originally he says he started developing this ability during Boros' invasion at the Hero Association, and it makes sense. There he fought an enemy that he even describes as being pretty much immune to his sword. So he had the idea of what if he could move his sword so fast and so powerfully that he could essentially disintegrate a target. Then its regeneration factor wouldn't matter at all. And he can do this. Now, he can't use it a lot. He describes that the process of using this actually puts strain on his wrist, which he says he hasn't felt in years. And considering just before this we'd seen him dicing apart dozens upon dozens upon dozens of monsters without even batting an eyelash, this move must be really intensive. But it does work. He essentially counteracts Black Sperm's ability to split apart by atomizing the clones. Now, he can't do this en masse, which is why he ends up having such a hard time against Black Sperm, but if he could do this pretty much without restriction, it would not have been an even matchup by far. Of course, while these abilities are what make him so strong, he does have an ability that he just acquired that we don't know that much about, but could take him to an entirely different level. Now, this important new ability is that he can use the special sword Nichirin. Now, this isn't one of the Nichirin blades from Demon Slayer. No, it is actually an incredibly powerful artifact made by some method that we're not exactly sure of that allows a person to funnel their ki into the blade and hypothetically allowing them to cut anything. Now, this also does give the user an incredible strength and speed boost, as we actually saw Atomic Samurai get to use this against Golden Sperm. Now, while it's worth noting that Golden Sperm is not as powerful as Platinum Sperm, it is still an incredibly powerful form for the villain. And he was actually able to use this to cut off Golden Sperm's arm. Now, it's important to keep in mind that Golden Sperm, up to this point in time, was really kind of immune to many of the other characters that were present. And while some of those S-Class heroes had already been having a bad day at this time, it's still impressive that Atomic Samurai, who'd been pushed to his limit a couple times already, could use his ki to actually sever the arm. And since Golden Sperm could not regenerate in this form, he actually might have been able to kill him. Unfortunately, the monster was able to overpower him because Atomic Samurai did not have enough ki to use the weapon again. Thus would begin what we assume now is going to be a new training arc for him to be able to use it more. However, there is also another statement that's made, and that is since Atomic Samurai can actually use Nichirin, it's believed he will be able to use Gotcharin as well. Now, Gotcharin is called the Moonblade. It's a sister blade, and it was actually forged at the same time as Nichirin. It's believed that whoever acquires both and can use them both will basically become a god among swordsmen. I have no idea what that's going to look like, but I'm really looking forward to it. And while Gotcharin is currently a lost item, I think we can expect to find it at some point in the series, because if this series has proved anything, it's that it loves getting characters cool upgrades that we get to see used in combat against monsters.